Hello everyone and welcome to another casual review. Today, I'm talking about Super Mario 64 DS. Now I know what you're thinking, I already made a video on Super Mario 64, but this is the DS version of that game, and there are a surprising amount of differences between the two versions. This is actually my very first DS game that I've ever owned. It came bundled in with my electric blue DS, and I loved playing this game. Unfortunately, back in my youth, I traded this game with my cousin. In my head, I thought this was a temporary change, and he still has my original copy of Super Mario 64 DS, and I still have his copy of Mario 3v3 Hoops, or I think something along that naming convention. Anyway, he came out as the clear winner because the Mario Hoops game sucks, but this game is actually pretty good. So I've went a long time without playing this game on the DS until I went to a electronics store and I saw a used copy of the cartridge for 15 bucks. It didn't come with the case, but I knew I'd been saving my original case for some reason, so now I have a complete in-box version of this game. I apologize about the gameplay footage. I still haven't found a great way of recording DS and 3DS handheld games, aside from actual emulation, which that kind of takes away the point for me in terms of portability, so thanks for bearing with me. Now, if you're curious about the overall gameplay of Super Mario 64, may I reference you to my original video? I actually want to focus more on the differences between this version and the original N64 version. So if you wanted me to talk about the actual gameplay and getting the stars, I mostly have already talked about that in a previous video. The biggest difference in this version obviously would be the controls. It's probably one of the biggest complaints that I hear from other people talking about this game, because this game was for the original DS. That means that you have a D-pad. That means at max, your character can move around in 8 different directions. Compare that to the original N64 version where your character can move around 360 degrees. So you can see why it would feel a little more choppy to navigate around this 3D world. In my head, it feels padded by using a 3DS to play this game because it has the circle pad, so it at least feels like you can move 360 degrees, even though it's still replicating a D-pad, but at least it feels better to do tricks using the circle pad rather than the D-pad. You also have a bottom screen that is a touch screen, so mostly this is beneficial as a map for you, as it shows locations of where the stars should be. Sometimes it shows you locations of where silver stars or red coins are, and it's just overall nifty to have a permanent map down below the screen. If you so choose, you can also use this to control your characters rather than moving around with the D-pad. You can use the touchscreen to point in the direction that you want your character to start walking. Why anybody would want to play this way, I have no idea, but hey, at least you have that option. Another quite notable change in this version is you have access to 4 playable characters rather than just Mario. And in fact, at the beginning of the game, both Mario, Luigi, and Wario hop out of the pipe at the very beginning, if you're familiar with the original version, and they run into the castle, and you are left to play as Yoshi. This is your starting character, and you need to play as Yoshi to rescue the other 3 characters somewhere in the castle, which I really like the concept of finding these unlockable characters. All of these characters have their own strengths and weaknesses, but really the best character is Yoshi, and I'll explain why. First of all, you have the flutter jump, and the flutter jump makes it so much easier to do platforming in this game. It makes it helpful to line up your shadow, and so you're not so dedicated to your jump as if you were playing as Mario. Yoshi also has his infamous eat a character and poop him out as an egg, and you can throw the egg at other enemies and it can ricochet between enemies, so if there's like 10 enemies nearby, it'll just bounce between all of them and destroy them, and it is incredibly useful. Really, the main reason why Yoshi is the best character is because he can, if you unlocked these other 3 characters, he can just equip these other 3 characters' hats and turn into them as needed. So in most cases, your best bet is to play as Yoshi, and at the beginning it gives you an option to select which hat you want to wear. Now granted, if you get hit by an enemy, you will drop this hat and the hat disappears fairly quickly, so you have to be quick on the draw to re-grab it if you get hurt. But even if you lose the hat, usually in most cases on most of the worlds, this hat will reappear somewhere, so you can go find this hat again, whether a Goomba is wearing it or it's just on the floor. Overall, I thought it was kind of weird how they had this character selection set up. I think how they should have done it is once you unlock the character, before you enter a level, you can choose which character you want to play as, instead of this whole Yoshi hat thing. Now, you can permanently play as one of the other characters, but you have to go all the way back to the main entrance of the castle and go into one of the corresponding characters' door, and then you will be permanently playing as that character even if you get damaged. It's just tedious having to go all the way back, especially near the late game when you're up near the top of the tower, to go all the way back down, go through the Mario door, and now you're playing as Mario. It just feels clunky. And so I think that they really should have just given you the option to change your character on the fly whenever you enter in a new level. So really, in most cases, just play as Yoshi and collect the hat as needed. The other characters, Mario's the only character that can wall jump, which yes, that is extremely helpful in certain given situations, but I was actually pretty surprised that I didn't find myself hurting that much needing to wall jump. I guess I thought in my head that I wall jumped a lot more than I actually do when I play this game. So typically you don't need Mario, but when you do, just find the Mario hat. He's also the fastest character, so he's probably my second most played character, aside from Yoshi. Now, Luigi has his infamous little kick. It's not quite as powerful as a flutter jump. It does give you a little bit of grace when falling because he falls slower than other characters. Still though, Yoshi just does this way better. Now, the cool thing about Luigi is when you do a backflip, he does the little propeller move where you slowly fall down to the ground too. Typically didn't stick with Luigi though, because I just found I'd rather have Mario and be able to wall jump if I was choosing between one of the brothers. Now, while Wario is my least played character, he is so slow that it's almost unbearable. He's just fat and clunky and it's just hard to control him. But his one benefit is he can break giant black blocks and no other character can break them. So occasionally you may need to break out the Wario hat and break some blocks. So yeah, basically I'm sticking with Yoshi or Mario, and then if I need one of the other characters, I'll use them. Now, the other difference between these characters are their abilities. So instead of the caps in the original N64 version, that being the Metal Mario cap or the invisible cap, these are mapped to actual characters. So Mario still has his famous winged cap where you can do a triple jump. In certain levels though, he also can balloon up really fat and just kind of float up into the air. There's that balloon power-up in Super Mario World where you can balloon up as well. I haven't seen Mario have that ability since, so I think they kind of dropped Mario having the capabilities to turn into a balloon. Now, you need to be playing as Luigi to turn invisible and walk through walls, and you need to be playing as Wario to turn metal. And all of these are attached to still a red block, but inside that red block is a little flower that you get. So if Yoshi gets that flower, then he just breathes fire for a little while. So it's pretty useless as far as Yoshi'S Superpower, but again, just collect the cap, turn into the corresponding character that you need for that ability, and then move along from there. Now, because you need to unlock these 3 additional characters, there are some things that you aren't able to do until you do so. And usually when I play Mario 64, I'm used to doing one world completely, like doing all of the stars, getting 100 coins, and absolutely finishing the world before I move on to the next one. That wasn't the case in this gameplay, because sometimes you'd encounter a star that you cannot access yet until you unlock Mario, Luigi, or Wario. So I did have to bounce around a lot more than I normally would in a Super Mario 64 game. I'm also having trouble remembering what is in the original Super Mario 64 and what is introduced in this one, and maybe what scenarios did I just happen to discover something that was in the original 64. Every time I play 64, I discover new teleportation spots, or wherever Hoot may be. Hoot is like an owl that carries you up in the air. That's another thing where I'm pretty sure that Hoot is in the original Mario 64, but I can't remember for sure. I definitely know that teleportation spots are in the original 64, and I've discovered like 2 more through this game session. So it's always exciting that this game is still delivering new secrets. Now, there are things that I'm almost positive are new to this version. There are some additional stars that are introduced. I think there's a total of 150 stars in this version compared to 120 in the original version. But I feel like they added an additional star in each world, or they've tweaked a star in each world, because there are switch stars. And switch stars are basically like you step on a switch and a star somewhere away from you will appear for a set amount of time, and you basically have to run over to that star to grab it. I don't think that's in the original 64. Another thing that I'm not sure about are silver stars, and they basically work like red coins, but you have to gather 5 silver stars to open up the actual star. Now, one thing that I know is introduced in this one are Mega Mushrooms. During this Mario era, they were all about Mega Mushrooms to make your character that you're playing super huge. So I think this was originally introduced in New Super Mario Brothers, and it carried on through some of the Mario Karts. It's not around anymore, but yeah, they were all about this giant mushroom. And this also makes an appearance in this game where you turn really huge, and you have to break like 8 or 9 different objects before you start collecting lives. Just a fun little addition, but I definitely think that it wasn't necessarily needed. And there are some additional levels created for this version as well. Like I said, there's 150 stars compared to 120, plus there are additional levels that you have to navigate through in order to unlock the 3 additional characters. And there's even a whole painting, this part's really cool, there's a whole painting that is centered around Super Mario Sunshine. So it's got the music and everything, and it's just a small, tiny little world, like really just a small island, and you have to get the 5 silver stars. But it was pretty cool hearing that crunchy Super Mario Sunshine music that was like compressed to be on a DS. Just a fun little nod towards that game. Another really cool thing that was introduced in this game are mini games. Now, Super Mario Brothers, I believe, also has all of these mini games, but there's just fun mini games that are simple, like you can play Othello, or there's like one where you launch bombs at stuff, and this is where the multiplayer aspect comes in, and the DS Download Play. For those of you who don't know, DS Download Play basically worked where only one of you needed the actual game cartridge, and the rest of, as long as you have a DS, you can play along with this game. So I really wish that they carried this feature through with the Nintendo Switch, but it was cool playing like Mario Kart. And the other, like, even if your friends don't have Mario Kart, they can still race with you. They just can't choose their character. They have to play as Shy Guy. There's a ton of other instances of DS Download Play, but playing these mini games multiplayer was like a staple in my childhood. These mini games actually taught me how to gamble. They taught me what like full houses were, or 4 of a kind. You're basically playing poker with Luigi as the dealer. So it's just fun. There's a ton of fun mini games, and in the main game of this, you have to capture the bunnies. In the original game, if you chase down these bunnies, they will give you a star if you catch them. There are a ton of extra bunnies in this one, and they will give you a key to unlock a minigame. And I think there's 28 different minigames that you can unlock. Again, if you don't want to worry about chasing down all these bunnies and you just want to play all the minigames, I think all of these minigames are already unlocked in New Super Mario Brothers. One really cool feature about this game is when you close your DS, you hear Mario say, "Bye-bye!" And then when you open it up, he says, "It's a me, Mario!" So it's just a fun little addition, like it's interacting with you when you close your DS. I wonder why they didn't utilize that feature more in other DS games, and I feel like they completely dropped it in the 3DS era. The music is same, so yeah, it's really great, it's really nostalgic, but again, it is that crunchy, compressed kind of music. It's not nearly at that level of the N64 playing on a TV. So originally I set out to get all 150 stars. Whenever I do play this game on the N64, I collect all 120, but I ran into a problem where I ended the game, I beat Bowser, and I had 143 stars. And whenever you pause, you can look through each world and make sure that you have all of the stars in each level, and you have 100 coins, which also gives you an additional star. And in all of the playable worlds, I had completed all the way, gotten all the stars, all the coins, but there are 30 stars that do not have a name other than one of the castle secret stars. And so this is a lot of additional content that I need more information to know where I need to go to get this star. Obviously, if I was missing a star at a world, I'd know to hop into that corresponding painting and go get that star. But when I'm looking at my list of castle secret star, I have no idea where to begin looking, and there are 30 of these things, so it would be very tedious to track down these missing 7 castle secret stars. And I really wish that they were more specific in listing which ones I'm missing so I can go back and grab them. But I'm just kind of scratching my head, and having beaten the game again, I just figured I'll wrap this one up and just let those 7 extra stars haunt me. Plus, the reward for getting all 150 stars isn't even that great anyway. It's very similar to the original N64, where you can get onto the roof of the castle, and in the original one, that's where Yoshi would be sleeping, and you can get additional lives. Obviously, in this one, you can play as Yoshi, so you're not going to be sleeping on the roof, but you can just get one of those wing cap stars and fly around as Mario, and you get a bunch of lives. But other than that, that's it. I really wish that it would have been so cool and definitely worth it to go back and get those missing stars if you unlocked maybe an additional character. Like, if I could play through the game as Donkey Kong or Princess Peach, I would totally go back and get all 150 stars. But as of now, I think I've gotten my experience with the Super Mario 64 DS. Now, let me throw this question out there. Is this the definitive version of Super Mario 64? Or is the original the definitive version? Now, this version certainly adds a lot more content. Are the changes an improvement to the original? It's hard to say. I'll just say this. If you are nostalgic about the N64, you're best off probably just playing that version, because nostalgia is a heck of a thing, and nothing can ever beat nostalgia. So you probably just want to stick with the N64 version. But if you've never played any version of this game before, I definitely think that the extra content is worth playing through. I do think that the original is the definitive version just because of nostalgia, but there's a lot of cool stuff here. It's pretty cool to be playing through the game as Yoshi and playing this additional content and these additional paintings, and yeah, the extra content certainly is cool. The controls, kind of wonky, but again, that's nothing new for Super Mario 64. The camera, you're always going to be struggling with. It's just something that you have to get used to and work with. Again, this is a very primitive game in terms of 3D gameplay. It's like the pioneer of 3D platforming, so they didn't quite have the camera right, and they certainly didn't fix it in this DS version, but it's just something you gotta work with. Now, I gave the original version of this game a 5 out of 5, and I believe I will give this DS version game a 5 out of 5 as well. I had a really fun time playing it, just like I always do whenever I play Super Mario 64, and I'm super stoked that I finally reclaimed a copy of this game to put in my case, because having lost my original copy has haunted me for a long time. So I'm glad I finally healed a part of my childhood and reclaimed the game, and I'm sure all of you guys have some kind of story of missing a childhood game as well. So I hope that you reclaim your childhood game someday and tell me all about it. Well guys, that's it for me. Let me know if you have any questions or comments about Super Mario 64 DS, and I'd love to hear what you have to say. Otherwise, I'll talk to you later. Bye!